This week on the Business and Marketing Scoop, I am talking with Mark White all about building Ireland's largest paddle tennis facility. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mark, you're about to open, and by the time this episode goes out, it will have been open. Ireland's largest paddle tennis facility.
Correct.
Out in Carrick near Fota.
Yep.
Before we dive into your story and the story of how that facility came about, would you explain paddle tennis?
I will. So paddle tennis, it's a combination of tennis and squash. It's played on a court a third the size of a tennis court. To nerd out on you, it's 10 meters wide by 20 meters long. It's a game for 4 players. So unlike tennis, there's no singles element. You can play singles if you want, but and you'll get a great workout. But with the angles with the glass panels in play, singles becomes quite difficult. But it would be a great workout for sure. From an international point of view, it's only doubles. There's only, the rules and regulations for the sport are for 4 people. The court is it's a permanent structure. So it's surrounded by glass and steel framing. The glass panels are in play. So that's where the crossover with squash comes into it. So 2v2. So essentially I have to hit the ball over the net, similar to tennis, and it must land in play. So if I hit the ball off the wall first or off the glass, essentially I've hit it out. A way I've been explaining it a lot lately, because I suppose with my tennis background, and there's a big tennis community in Cork, that's a lot of interest has drummed up within those organizations. The easiest way to explain it is that if you hit the glass first, you've hit it out. So think of the glass like the lines on the court, essentially. So hit the ball over the lines in tennis, you've hit it out. So it's definitely played more like tennis, I feel, but maybe that's the tennis player in me. Me saying that. The scoring is the same as tennis. So if you're familiar with that, you're 15 love, 30 love. The only difference is when you get to juice, it's called a golden point. So essentially it's a sudden death.
That's a much better
name. Death point. Yeah. Golden point. Yeah. And they play receiver's choice. So if I'm the server and it's at juice, I have to ask the receiving team which partner would like to receive the serve. Essentially I suppose it levels the playing field a little bit. Me as the server at juice, I'm going to choose to serve to the weaker of the 2 players. So I suppose it levels the playing field.
So once after the serve, once the ball is in play, we'll say you can be played off the glass then.
Yeah, provided you've hit it into the other side first. Yeah.
So is it quite a fast game? So
it is, particularly given your proximity to your opponents, given the smaller court space compared to tennis. It's quite. Wham, bam, bam, bam. And particularly, it's a game for where the team that claims the net or spends most time in the forecourt tends to be the team that's doing well. Okay. So, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of bang, 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 like looks like kind of sped up table tennis. A lot of people think is it table tennis on a larger court, but I can see the similarities.
Standing on the table surrounded by glass.
Exactly. But I suppose from the equipment point of view, so we play with a paddle racket. So the paddles are carbon bats. So they don't have strings like a tennis racket. So I suppose you don't have to worry about breaking strings and get them restrung. You'd be doing well now to break your paddle, unless there's a bit of a John McEnroe moment in there somewhere. The balls are 25% denser than a tennis ball. Looks like a tennis ball, feels like a tennis ball, but it's a paddle ball. Because it's denser, you tend to play most of your shots in a squatted position. So it's really a good exercise, and the bat is quite shorter as well in compared to a tennis racket. So shorter piece of equipment, lower bounce. The thighs will be quick
to a workout.
Yeah, you'll be getting a workout pretty quickly. We have men's doubles, women's doubles, mixed doubles. The World Paddle Tour is the well now Premier Padel is what the tour is going to be from January, I believe. They're your kind of your three formats of the sport, between the mixed doubles, the men's doubles, and the women's doubles. So
it sounds brilliant. I can't wait to give it a go.
Yeah.
And the facility, I've seen some photos of it, and I know it's not open yet, but by the time this out, it will be.
Yeah.
It looks unbelievable.
Yeah.
I suppose before we kind of dive into that, tell me a bit about Mark White, where you're from, how you got involved in this space.
So I'm from Tramore in Waterford. I'm 33, and I've been playing tennis pretty much since I joined when I was 7. I'm not going to tell a lie. I joined when I was 7, and sadly I didn't have anyone to play with for 2 years. So I didn't start really playing tennis until I was 9. My mum is the biggest Wimbledon fan that you will have, without playing tennis. So my mum never played tennis a day in her life, but wanted somebody to play tennis. And there's a lovely photo, I think, me in a rocket tot about 2 years of age in front of a screen watching Wimbledon. So we live like 500 yards from the local tennis club. So that's where my passion for racket sports has come from. I suppose. So I've been playing tennis. To be perfectly honest, I'm not naturally very sporty. I wasn't as a kid. So it was always a struggle for me to get anywhere with my tennis, I suppose. But I suppose I had 4 or 5 summers of getting absolutely hammered and mum and dad driving me all around the country and bombing out in first rounds. But at 14 or 15, I really found my way with it. And I've 3 caps for Munster. So I would have played on the Munster provincial team twice under 18 and once under 14. Was the number 1 in the singles rankings in Munster for couple of years, my late teens, and some nice titles there along the way in the junior Irish calendar. So I loved it. It's funny, just on the edge of opening Ireland's largest Padel Tennis Facility, if you were to tell me that, 16 years ago when I was a teenager, well, obviously I wouldn't have known what it was at the time, but tennis was my thing, and I would like to think that it still is. I love it. I took mum to Wimbledon for the first time. For
fantastic!
Her.
That must have been an amazing experience for her. If she'd be following it for so long.
It was an amazing experience for both of us. I'll spoil it and say she was 60 this year. Yeah. So early 60th present, we went to Wimbledon last year. It was a real tearjerker moment walking into the grounds together. I was there again this year. That was my 7th Wimbledon, I think. I'll be one of these, I'll be 90 and I'll be one of those at Wimbledon every year. It's really quite special, but it was pretty cool to go with mum. We saw her favorite is Rafa Nadal, and we saw him play a 5-set thriller over 5 hours against the young American Taylor Fritz. And it was, it's the luck of the draw. You could have got a great match or a dud, but it was pretty special. So
fantastic.
That was really cool. So yeah,
brilliant, man. So obviously, clearly, there's a massive passion there for tennis.
Yeah,
and it looks like that's kind of translates to probably all or many racket sports.
Yeah.
Where did you first discover even paddle tennis?
So again, it's very important to mention my partner. So my life partner and my business partner is Jeremy. Jeremy is 41 and he's from Sydney. So me and Jeremy met 7 years ago at Wimbledon. So I know that sounds really corny.
Tennis is the core of everything.
Tennis is it's a huge part of my life, and it always will be. It's given me a lot. I had a particularly awful time throughout secondary school, and I think that's why I've never taken to team sports. Tennis was my savior. I could, go and play by myself or with, just one friend and away from the criticism of others that I would have faced in school. So that's a,
and do you think that drove you into tennis even more?
I think maybe not drove me at the start, but it certainly was. It was a safe space, I felt, and away from, the locker room of PE time and all the homophobia that would have come if I can go there. It was really had a kind of a really bad 5 years in post primary.
So tennis became that environment that was kind of a step away from that then.
Yeah, and particularly when it didn't come naturally to me, because I certainly didn't throw myself into my schoolwork, but I could really throw myself into my tennis, and it's always been. It's very much a part of me. I know that sounds corny, but that's important to kind of touch on that, because that's where my passion for inclusive sport, it comes from, because I know what it's like to feel excluded. So I want to make sure that my own facility doesn't exclude anybody. So
brilliant.
So I met Jeremy at Wimbledon. Three of my best friends, we went in 2016 to the tennis, and I met Jeremy on Henman Hill in the queue for Pims. And
this is some fairy tale shit, right?
It is. It absolutely is. Jeremy moved from Sydney in January 2016 to London. Jeremy is a wine specialist. So Jeremy studied viticulture and winemaking in university in Sydney, and he moved to London, and he was working for it's one of the most exclusive wine stores in the world in Berkeley Square in Mayfair. It's called Hedonism Wines. So had an expansive Rolodex of who you would expect to be shopping in there in central London. So we did long distance between Waterford and London for about 3.5 years. And I was working self-employed tennis coach for the past 8 years in Tremor. Really, really successful 8 years there. And I suppose the flexibility around being self-employed allowed me to take kind of the last week of every month off and then go over to London.
Very good.
And we had a wonderful 3.5 years doing that. I mean, there was no hardship going to central London. Jeremy lived right behind Selfridges off Oxford Street. It was pretty cool. It's very special. London is actually a really special place to both of us, Cool. So Jeremy moved over to Ireland maybe a year before the pandemic, mid 2019, I think. And you can imagine the fall from grace coming from the wine industry of Mayfair to the wine industry of Waterford or Ireland. There was a couple of jobs he could have actually got in Cork or Dublin. But then we kind of felt he may as well have stayed in London if he was going to do that.
Yeah.
I would have rather the commute still to London. So it would kind of defy the purpose if he was to not be, if we weren't going to be living together. So Jeremy, coincidentally, his elder brother has had a tennis court installation company in Australia, in Sydney. So Jeremy's tennis knowledge would be, I won't say it's as good as mine, but I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. So Jeremy was working at the club in Tremor as an administrator for kind of maybe about 2.5, 3 years, all over COVID. And that was a bit of good luck that his tennis knowledge was there, that he was able to find some work in that industry. But I think in the short time we know each other, you can pick up on my passion for tennis and racket sports, but Jeremy's no different about wine. So definitely was hard for him to not be able to get a job in his passion. It would be the same as me not being able to work in sports. So we came up with, this is where I suppose my own entrepreneurial journey started, and we started doing bespoke tennis and wine holidays. So
That sounds amazing.
it absolutely was. It was. It does what it says on the tin. There was lots of tennis and lots of wine, and the more wine there was less tennis. But we were hoping to do it before we had the bones of the plan put together. And COVID, obviously, we couldn't travel and whatever. So we did our first one in May last year. So 2022, we brought 15 of my clients from tennis, and we did 5 days in the La Manga Club, South Spain. 3 hours of tennis on the clay courts in the morning with me every day, and different vineyard or wine tasting in the evening with Jeremy.
Unbelievable.
It was very, very special. Some really, really well-traveled people on the trip with us, and the feedback was nothing short of, it was a holiday of a lifetime.
Brilliant.
So when we were there, the La Manga Club has 28 tennis courts. So it is one of Europe's top tennis resorts. But the reason why we picked it in particular was because the wine region there is very, very strong. I won't even pretend to pronounce where the wine regions was, because I'll embarrass myself. But ultimately, I picked 4 or 5 tennis destinations around Europe, and then Jeremy got the final say on where we would go based on where they had to. One couldn't outshine the other. They had to work seamlessly. So La Manga was the right area. So it was really, really cool. But in the middle of the 28 tennis courts is very typical, like Spanish cabana bar with it was just fabulous, and everyone was playing this game on a smaller court with a smaller bat, sitting around having a couple of beers or strawberry daiquiris afterwards, and that's where the paddle journey started. So everyone was like, we have to give it a go. So I went in and spoke to some of the coaches there, and gave me a brief rundown of the rules. To be perfectly honest, I hadn't, other than on Instagram, I had seen a few videos, but never really paid much attention to it myself, I guess. And I collected collecting €8 a head ad hoc. We booked 2 courts for an hour and a half, and we ended up doing that for the next 2 or 3 days. And when we came home, nobody was talking about the tennis or the wine. It was all about the paddle.
Go away.
Yeah. And it was it was like people were crying out for, it was like teasing everyone. Oh, that was great, but we came home. Where will we do it? And then there's nowhere to do it. So there was another entrepreneur, very successful business lady on the trip with us, who helped us out at the start and said, basically, look, I think this would be really, really good idea if you're, we're willing to put everything into it. So we spent all of the summer of 2022 doing the market research in Ireland. It didn't take long to realize how poorly infrastructured paddle is in the country. We affiliated ourselves, Jeremy and I, with our plans with the Padel Federation of Ireland. So they're the NGB of the sport, the national governing body. They're based out of Bushy Park in Terenure. So it's Bushy Park Tennis and Paddle Club.
How big an organization is that?
Well, there's about 6,000. Last year anyway, when we started, there was about 6,000 paddle players in Ireland. Okay. So, there was, at the time when we started, I'm pretty sure there was 18 courts in the country. So that's not 18 facilities, it's 18 courts. 18 Jeez. Courts. So you have, there was 2 in Adair Manor. They were the only 2 indoor at the time, I believe. There was 3 in Cavan Tennis Club. Fitzwilliam Lawn Tennis Club has 2 or 3. I haven't seen them, I'm not sure. Bushy Park has 4. And then there's another facility in Selbridge in Dublin that has another 4, I think. So yeah, you're up around your 18, but very quickly you can wind back the 18 because in the hotel scenario, you have to be a hotel guest to play. In the tennis club scenario, with the exclusion of Bushy Park, you have to be a member of the club. Yeah. So all of a sudden then there's 7 or 8 courts in the country that are for public use. So it was very quickly, and for talking to people up in Dublin, people love it, but it's becoming increasingly frustrating when you find you have a passion for something and then all of a sudden you can't get a court for 3 weeks or, whatever, or you're getting coaching, but then you're struggling to get a court to be able to practice on. So it's great. And if never mind ourselves what we're doing for a moment, there is other courts popping up around, which is really great. Again, a lot of it seems to be in the luxury hotels and the tennis club scenario. So from the national growth point of view, it's great that more courts are coming, but until those, until the public can go in and play without, having to join a tennis club or something, I think the growth of the sport nationally would
stifle it. Like,
yeah. So this is where our innovative business model came along, I suppose, to only be a pay-per-play facility, backed by my own passion for inclusion. So we won't be offering membership in Padel Tennis Ireland because we want it for everybody.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm smiling as I'm saying that, but that's the whole idea behind it. We want it for everybody. If you put, a membership of whatever amount on it, nominal or, extortionate, there's somebody that can't afford it.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're about.
But that's the thing, if with your model at the moment, if you can get a few people together and go ahead, download the app and book online. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be an amazing facility, but also an amazing resource for the community as well. Yeah,
which is what, and I can't wait for everyone to see it. It's nothing short of a world-class sporting facility, which is what I was hoping we would produce. But now that I've seen it over the past couple of weeks and that it's going to be finished in the next day or two, that's what it is. But as soon as, certainly with me coming from a tennis background, you mention indoor and you mention world-class sporting facility, straight away your wallet is starting to sweat. But that's not what we're about. So we want, like, it is quite an unusual, the business model of pay per play. Like, essentially it's a community. You think of a community sports facility, and they don't, the resources and the investment that we've put into making ours look and feel the way it is. It's not your everyday run of the mill community facility that's welcoming to all, So I just think that's great that it's, give us 9 or 12 months. I would love to think that every aspect of the community will have been given the opportunity to play. Yeah. And if it's not for you, that's great. But I would like to think it's because we didn't make it possible for you to at least come and try it. So particularly, I've mentioned earlier that paddle is a game for 4 players. So, the cost is quartered.
Yes.
Which I think is, we've tried to keep it as, for the facility that it's in, we've tried to make it as affordable for everyone.
And I've seen some of the photos of the bill, and it does look like it's going to be an absolutely incredible facility.
Yeah.
In terms of, I suppose, from that point where we have the idea.
Yeah.
What were the next steps? What in terms of, was it getting funding? Was it finding the right people to collaborate with Sam? What were the next steps you took?
I suppose, so the affiliation with the Padel Federation was very influential. They could see our vision. They could also see our past work around inclusion, and a lot of my inclusion work in the tennis community was very appealing to them. That's how we wanted to roll the sport out, I guess. Also that whenever, pretty much since the start of this with Jeremy and I, we've actually never contemplated once having it outdoor. Because it just wouldn't work. I mean,
it's Ireland.
Yeah, it is, and it seems the weather seems to be getting worse. So, that was just never an option. So they loved the indoor element because nobody else was doing that at the time. So last September we spent a lot of time up in Dublin with the Padel Federation, and Jeremy and I are both qualified Padel Federation of Ireland coaches, which was great, and learned quite quickly that all of the tennis skills aren't as transferable as I would have thought.
It was a humbling experience. So.
Yeah, it was a very grounding experience at times, particularly when you're using some of the glass. And as a tennis player, usually if the ball has gone behind you, you tend to be out of it. So it's taken me a while to rewire the habits of a lifetime that you get a second chance, essentially. We just built our relationship then with the Padel Federation stronger as, the more time we were up there. So we pop up infrequently, and they've been great for even, now that the facility is looming, even with pointing us in the right direction of, the management software for the facility. Just the operational point of view, it's been great. So, tried and tested what they've done up there. So, albeit Bushy Park Tennis and Paddle Club, it's also pay per play as well. Okay. So there is a membership option, but it is pay per play. So, that was, it was another positive reason as to why we, continued to try and roll this out the way that we have, that it's working well up there. So that was kind of September. Oh, and then we did another Spanish trip in October. We did another one, about 12 people on that one. Same venue, same itinerary, with one big addition. Paddle was in the itinerary this time. Paddle seemed to be the focal point before the trip, because people had spoken to the guests that were with us on the trip in May, and everyone is, the tennis is good, wine is good, but the paddle is great. So it stole the show. So it was cool to have it as part of the itinerary that time. So we did the tennis in the morning, the paddle in the middle of the day, and then the wine, and we really earned the wine in the evenings after two forms of exercise in the morning and the afternoon. So
there wasn't like during the paddle, the sneaky swig of wine during the games or anything like that.
A few people had toilet breaks that turned into longer, and they said they were coffee, but I don't know. So the tennis went a little bit downhill. So maybe you have me a bit skeptical now. And yesterday we came home, and it was all paddle. So there was a few people on the second trip that had picked up that me and Jeremy were interested in doing some, because we were very, what do you think? And we were very, not invasive questions, but we played tennis with those people regularly. They were all customers of mine at the time, so I knew that they loved their tennis, and obviously they loved their wine if they were on a trip like that. But it's just interesting to, why do you like it so much? What was so, and only just as I'm sitting here thinking about it, one of the elements that worked so well about both trips with the paddle. So I would have had, from the tennis point of view, the combinations of who could play with who, and the way I coordinated the coaching on those sessions. That was based on around your ability. So I can put you play with these three, but not with those three. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
For all four players, not from even a hierarchical point of view, that it's just, tennis is just like that. It's not the most inclusive if you're on a court with three people that have been playing it all their life. Yeah. And everyone going on the trip from the tennis, there was no, everyone was expecting on the trip from the tennis court point of view to play with who they ended up playing with. They didn't need me to, who you were going.
Already.
Yeah, you knew. I mean, that's just the way it is. Yeah. But very quickly with the paddle, I realized that it didn't matter. So it's a leveling sport. It's a very grounding sport. So one of the hardest strokes in tennis is the serve. So it's also the most important because it's the only time that the ball is in your hand. So you have, at the start of the rally, when you're the server, you have the say. You can control roughly what's going to happen. If, the better your serve, the more you can control what's going to happen. You can control whether the ball comes back or not. So with paddle, the serve is only underarm. So you have to hit the first ball from below the waist. So for anybody that's not the highest level or, a very, very decent grade of a tennis player, so that's a bonus because you're like, that shot that's my Achilles heel doesn't exist now. So that's a big one. And now the more we've been in it and have people at the facility the past week, like they go like, no, you don't need to do that. And they're like, oh my God, amazing. It makes such a huge difference. Me being short, never had the best serve because my height is not, the time I'm at the baseline, the net is nearly at the same height as me. As I'm looking across, I'm not one of those, has the luxury of looking down into the box. So it definitely makes it more inclusive for that reason. There's also no grip changes when you're playing paddle in comparison to tennis. And if there are grip changes, they're very, very slight compared to that of tennis. And I know, speaking as if you put my tennis coach hat on now for a second, it's the grip changes that can really unhinge people. You're going from the ready position to the forehand grip. There's 4 subdivisions of forehand grip, depending on how you want to hit the ball. Then ball comes to your left-hand side, backhand grip. And then again, topspin, slice, flat, all very different ways to hold the racket.
Yeah.
Come into the net, volley, it's different, forehand, backhand. It's all very, very different. And can be quite complex and quite daunting. And particularly from a beginner's point of view, there can be a lot of investment involved in wanting, you look at people playing tennis that have been playing, oh, that looks really easy. Well, sure, everyone watches Wimbledon and they're like, oh, that's no bother, and then one of the biggest uptakes in tennis in the year is in July. Wimbledon season. Everyone's watching it on the BBC. It's like, oh yeah, that's the racket sales go through the roof in July, and very quickly you realize it's not as easy to play as Roger Federer or Serena Williams, paddle is just very different in that the grip is pretty much the same for every stroke.
Cool.
Yeah.
I suppose that, the big thing coming across to me was obviously the passion, but the inclusivity of paddle compared to a lot of other sports.
Yeah.
is hugely important to you as well.
Yeah.
From a business perspective.
Yeah.
Anything you've learned over the past year on this journey that has really stood out to you? Yes. Lots of stuff. Don't ever be afraid to ask somebody for help. I remember listening to the radio a couple of years ago. Don't even know what channel or what program, but there was this kind of a scenario. So to be sitting here now in this scenario, it's a little bit surreal. So the broadcaster asked whoever she was talking to, how did you get to where you are or with what you're doing? And it was like, I just ask people for help. People that seem to know what they're doing in their own fields. Have you got any advice? And, they were like, but that doesn't work. And it's like, you would be surprised with how generous people are with their time if you ask. And that has stuck with me now. And like, it's not in a picky way or a nuisance way. It's just, I'm trying to do this and I'm a little bit stuck. Would you have any insight as to, how I might get past that roadblock? And people are so good with their time. During this process, I definitely feel, your faith would be restored in humanity slightly. People, and I mean, I suppose one of the really good things that from my tennis background is I was very fortunate with a lot of the people that were doing a lot of my classes. Tennis is such a diverse sport itself that there's all backgrounds and all financial demographics of, people that were doing my classes. So you had a very, a good pool of people to just even pick people's brain from. And, I know I know somebody that might be able to help. And that's just that's kind of how how it started, I suppose. Just not being, afraid to ask for help. I know that might sound very, very basic, but
I think a lot of people are afraid of it.
Yeah.
And I think as well, when someone clearly shows that they're passionate about something and they're really interested in something and they really like it, and then you ask.
Yeah.
I think that makes a big, big difference.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the asks that people make are not asks for help. They're, they're asks for, very much for them as opposed to a greater vision or a greater goal.
Yeah.
And I think that can make a massive, massive difference as well in terms of the answers you get back and the time you get back.
And how much time people want to put into it. I'm a people person. I like meeting people. One of my favorite aspects of this whole, I hate using the word journey. It's such a cringy word.
But it is, though.
Yeah, I know. But I think, it's such a cringy word. It's the networking. I really enjoy it. And I like hearing other people's stories and just find it so interesting as to why you're doing what you're doing and how you got into that. And, I really like that aspect of it. And then the more receptive, I suppose, I make a joke. I don't know whether we've actually created a product or a service, but I'm still not sure. But it's something that, my enthusiasm definitely comes out in when I'm, talking about it, because I believe that it is a great product or service or a great facility. So I would just say don't be afraid to network,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to ask people for help or advice, and I was pleasantly surprised with how giving people were with their time, so that's and I like now that's what I'm still doing, that day in, day out, asking, people are great, like,
Brilliant.
So I know that sounds really corny, but that's
I don't think it does, because I don't think a lot of people think that way. I think a lot of people can be quite negative in some aspects. I think if you approach the world and people with optimism and hoping for the best and wishing for the best and being really optimistic about your approach and passionate about what you're doing, when you then go and ask that person for, look, I have this idea, I'm wondering, would you have any insight? Would you have any help? Their response is going to be potentially a lot more optimistic and a lot more positive when you are so passionate and so optimistic about what you're doing.
And also, I think some people are flattered to be asked.
Yeah, probably.
I do. I found that, particularly if you're not asking them in an overly professional or serious scenario, you're complimenting them because you want them to have an input in what you're doing. And I have found are
are really receptive to that. I'm not saying everybody says yes, mind you now, or everyone is willing to help, but if there's somebody that's not, don't let that stop you from, because I've had loads of no's along the way. It hasn't been plain sailing at all. The journey's been really turbulent, but like, you know, just ask again.
Yeah.
You know?
No, you got to keep going. Like,
Yeah, you just, yeah. I think one thing I've been thinking about a lot is, maybe not quite manifestation, but, but it's, focus on the goal rather than the obstacle.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And that's, that's,
I like if it's just a big part of, I think, business and life in general is mindset.
Yeah.
And if you just have that, really seeing every problem as a potential opportunity.
Yeah.
Seeing everything that goes wrong as, okay, how can we make it better the next time? I think when you have that attitude, everything in life gets easier, better things happen. And it's easier said than done. But I think it's when you have that kind of, that attitude, it makes a massive, massive difference.
And I totally agree. And also when you're focused on the goal rather than the obstacle, you're actually still moving forward.
Yeah.
You still have some traction because you're not putting all of your energy into the obstacle that's stopping you from, you know, if you're only focused on that, if all your brain power is going into that one obstacle, be it a large one or a small one, at that moment, you're not moving.
Yeah.
You're not.
And the obstacles are very often small things that are in no way helping or deterring from that goal. Yeah. It's distractions, and sometimes an awful lot of the time.
Yeah. But I suppose, to answer your question a few minutes ago, what we ended up doing was we created a turnkey paddle, I won't say facility, but a paddle business or a brand. So we have the facility is fabulous. At the building, I mean, before, like, it's 12 months ago this week when I saw that building for the first time.
You've moved quick. Consider you're opening this week. This week.
Saturday. Yeah. So it was a 30,000 square foot empty shell. But what we wanted about it, like, hopefully when you come and see it, it's quite aesthetically pleasing on the eye, what we have created, and the color schemes are great and it's turned out really well. But that was always the vision. So it was deserving of putting a glass box in a glass box, if I can say that. It had to have glass floor to ceiling, certainly on the roadside, because what we were going to put was so nice inside, it needed to be seen. And I mean, the building we got has to be one of the nicest units around, you know. So, and actually now that it's finished, it actually looks like that it was they're a match. It looks like they were, you know, that they were made for each other. Everyone is like, oh, is this supposed to be always a paddle facility? Is what it started to look like, you know. So we had the building, we had the vendor for the courts. So Portico Sports are one of the global leaders in paddle court installation. So we teamed up with them like 12 months ago. They've been hugely influential in getting us to where we are. From a knowledge point of view, I mean, their customer service has just been wonderful from the start. Like 12 months ago, ringing them, and obviously sitting here now, I was like, I didn't have a clue what I was going. Yeah, they must have been thinking, what's he even asking, you know? So we had that. We had some ties with equipment providers for the rackets and the balls. We had the management team between Jeremy and myself. We had the affiliation with the federation. We're both the qualified coaches. When we were pitching it, then looking for funding, we weren't pitching an idea because we had so much more than that, if that makes sense.
Yep.
We had, you know, it was quite tangible at that point. We had the building, we had like, this is who's going to do the courts. This is, we had the graphics from the courts. We were able to say, you know, it's not, okay, let's open an indoor paddle facility. It was so much more than that. It was very much, I'd be reluctant to say trading, but it was very, very tangible, you know. But yeah, the driving force was obviously Jeremy and myself behind it. So anyone actually starting out, I would, you know, you don't necessarily need the funding right at the beginning. We didn't have it, and it didn't stop the process. And I can see now why people would get head up on the funding must be right at the beginning, because it certainly wasn't for us, you know.
Cool.
So yeah, it was very, I suppose, if that makes sense, we had all of the background work was done in advance of having.
But I mean,
funding.
that's a much more attractive situation for somebody looking to invest as well.
Yeah.
Right.
If I told you that that's the way it was supposed to be planned, I would be absolutely full of crap. Like, but that's the way it happened, and I'm very grateful for that's the way it happened, because you were showing you were showing everything about it. Like most of the questions that were asked of us, we had the answers, because it wasn't research. I mean, we had everything ready. We needed the funding to you know, start the engine essentially. Yeah. So that's why, you know, we've had such a quick turnaround the facility has come together in the past 4 months.
Unreal.
You know, I have pictures of in July, still the same as it was in October last year, and now it's finished.
Brilliant.
You know, so it just and it was very reassuring, I suppose, from our investors' point of view, that it's not something that we had thought about overnight and something that we had just thrown together. We had put close to 12 months of work into it before receiving any funding. So there's a lot of thousands and thousands of hours, and, you know, like my Google Drive, I'd be afraid to see how many documents that are in there. Even, you know, all of our policies and procedures, that was all done at the start of the year, and, you know, our safeguarding, all those really important time consuming things. It was only last week I was like, my God, I'm really glad that a lot of those things were done, because I wouldn't be able to have thrown them together in the past, and they're too important to throw them together. But it was just not the way it was supposed to happen. But I'm very fortunate that it did.
I don't think there's any business owner on the planet that has like, this is my path, this is what I'm going to have, this is what's going to happen, and it goes exactly like it. It never does.
Another big one is, so one of our partners is TPC Matchpoint. So they're one of the global leaders in paddle management software. So again, like, our website was all, I mean, I've had the website done since probably February, you know? So it's, you know, again, it was tangible. It was like, this is, and it was, you know, listed with all our programs and, you know, what we want to do. And, you know, I suppose another thing with the funding, your vision is really important, and the mission statement, and ours is that we aim to be Ireland's most inclusive sporting brand or organization. That's a pretty big head turner, and I'm delighted to say that that's not moral compass as to why we've gone for that. We're not looking to drum up support by saying that. That's just who we are as people, Jeremy and awesome. I. Yeah, you know, and people that we're working with really loved that, but they could also see, I suppose, seeing is believing. A lot of the past work we've done, me in particular for the last 8 years with tennis, has, inclusive sport has been at the forefront of that. You know, piloted some, you know, was the first person to bring blind, visually impaired tennis program to the southeast in October last year. It was supposed to be 4-week program, a trial, and it ran until the summer.
Unreal.
Yeah. Kids of all ages, all vision impairments, right up to 2 teenage girls that are completely blind. And that was an absolutely amazing experience. And ones that, you know, we're still in contact with all of those families. I've been working with the Waterford and South Kilkenny branch of Down Syndrome Ireland for quite a few years as well. And I'm going to get upset now thinking about them because I actually miss them terribly. But Jeremy and I kept that going every Saturday right up until about 8 weeks ago, until we moved down to Cork.
Oh, it's fresh as well, or it's only just happened.
Yeah.
It's a lot of change for you in the last few weeks. So
we only moved to Cork 5 weeks ago tomorrow. So again, just with the opening of the facility looming, spending too much time in the car, and it would have been pointless us being here any earlier than that, because it was totally unnecessary. That's the inclusion thing is what's going to feature heavily throughout the facility. Even like last summer as well, I did a summer camp with actually down in Cork with the Cran Centre for kids with neurological and physical disabilities. It's absolutely, you know, really, really well received. And it's really, we're opening our own facility. I feel it's quite, there's no shackles around us after working under the constraints of committees and everything for the past, you know, within a club scenario. It's great to not be confined to that now, because again, this comes back to everyone being welcome. You know, that's Jeremy and I's call, which it's been quite frustrating at times when you want to do something where you'll probably benefit least and you're told no, you know. But that's, you know, with clubs, that's what happens, and it's been quite frustrating over the years at times. It's lovely to have left that behind us for sure. So,
well, it's exciting. I think it's, as I say, it sounds like it's something that's going to be a massive resource for the community as well. If people are interested in going out and trying it, because when this podcast comes out, everything's going to be live and open.
Yeah.
What's the website they can go to?
So you can find us at www.padeltennisireland.ie. It's very important that it's PADEL. If you look up PADDLE, you'll end up rowing up the Lee or something. So if you have a look at our social media, one of our hashtags that follows pops up quite regularly is paddle, not paddle. So PADEL, not PADDLE. You'll see a few pictures of some of the kids that I've worked really closely with over in tennis for the past few years with their paddle rackets, but me on the ground with an oar. So me rowing or paddling, and they're actually looking quite disapprovingly down at me with their doing it correctly. So that's something that we will be trying to educate the community that there's a difference between PADEL and PADDLE. And same on Facebook. We're actually very active on Instagram and Facebook over the past 3 or 4 weeks only. And that's everything is Padel Tennis Ireland, all lowercase, one word. I suppose from the program's point of view, from January onwards, that's when things really, really kick off. We've got like a plethora of events from our, you know, coaching programs, you know, over the course of a school term for the kids, in a group scenario, the same for the adults. It's the absolute perfect facility for corporate team building days. I think next year we have 14 weeks of school holiday programs. So, you know, February midterm break, the 2 weeks of Easter, 4 weeks of post-primary camps in June, and then for primary and post-primary, July and August, Halloween, and then at Christmas. So they'll be run all through the year. which is exciting. Kids' birthday parties, adults' birthday parties. Can see some fun hashtags with a few of those, like paddle parties and all of those. I think that's going to be. We'll have.
Don't Google that yet.
Yeah, don't Google that yet. Yeah. Can't. No onus on whatever might come up in a Google search related to that. Yeah, we've got like, you know, and again goes back to the fact that Jeremy and I are not shackled, and the decision makers in the day-to-day operations, that if we think, oh, that would be a fun idea, let's, you know, give it a go. So, but our grand opening is Saturday the 13th of January. So yeah, like we'll have trials. Hoping that the team Ireland from Ireland's paddle team are going to come down and play some exhibitions on that day. I hope. It's looking good for that, and yeah, we'll have lots of come and tries, and yeah, dip in and out of the court for 10 minutes and see what it's all about. But yeah, that's kind of it, I think. Yeah,
fantastic, Mark. Listen, thanks so much for joining me, and wish you nothing but continued success, because it's an amazing facility for the city, for the county, and for the community, and for the country. I mean, it looks so impressive. So well done.
I might just add that we actually couldn't be happier to have done. We have plans for you know, for the nation, hopefully over the next couple of years, all going well. But you know, we couldn't be happier that the first one is in Cork, and that's a decision that we stuck behind, because we were initially going to do it in Waterford where we were living, and the scale at that we wanted to deliver it, and knowing particularly how big racket sports are in Cork in particular, and Cork loves its sport, it was the perfect place to do it. So yeah, we couldn't be happier that we chose Cork to do it. So
brilliant. Best way to end is a plug for Cork.
Yeah. Not intended. Yeah.
Fantastic, man. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Business and Marketing Scoop. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to click that subscribe button in Spotify, in Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Each week we have great people on talking about business, talking about marketing, giving amazing value and amazing insights. So please make sure you are subscribed.